Clapping for sync. For the longest time, E3 has been one of the biggest events in gaming that people look forward to. It's where companies are going to reveal some of their biggest new news, we'll actually get snippets of gameplay, and if there are new systems coming out, it's likely the place we're going to actually see them for the first time and get some real hard info on them. But as years have gone by, numerous things have just been adding up more and more that kind of make people question whether or not we really need it anymore. And even if we did, is it kind of just dying off anyways? I've held off on making this video concept for a little while because every time the right kind of news comes up, there's always ideas and videos coming out of, oh, E3 is dead, E3 is dying, why E3 doesn't matter. And while I don't necessarily completely disagree with that sentiment, I don't know if it's completely accurate. But there has been some recent news today that I think adds on to this concept a lot more and really makes me question whether or not I'm gonna go this year. There's actually two pieces of news that came out this morning. One that actually isn't a real thing, but the other one is. The first one that's not real is there was a list of exhibitors that got leaked for who's going to be showing up at E3. Now, this list is actually real, but it's incomplete. And one of the things that people kind of freaked out about when looking at it is that two noticeable companies missing from the list were Nintendo and Microsoft. Now, I don't normally know how Microsoft is listed because while they are at E3, they actually host a separate event across the street, so I don't know if they normally get listed as an official exhibitor, aside from having their press conference, but Nintendo missing is definitely a weird thing. Now, people took this as a sign of, oh man, Sony left, now all these other companies are leaving, E3 is really dying off. That's not the case. This list is in fact actually incomplete, and Doug Bowser for Nintendo has specifically said, hey, we are attending E3 2020 and we're looking forward to being there. So that's not actually a real thing or real fear. What is real is an announcement that happened around the same time that Jeff Keighley is not going to be attending E3 this year. Now, if you heard me say that and you don't know who I'm talking about, Jeff Keighley is a personality that's been in the gaming industry for quite some time. He's been one of the main forefront people that has done a lot of reporting on gaming and brought it more into the public view. He hosts and sets up the whole Game Awards thing that's been going on the last few years, and he has always been kind of a major fixture of E3. He's been attending for the last 25 years, and he hosts their main kind of Coliseum thing. He does a lot of the news stuff for it, and him not going this year is kind of a weird, bad symbolic thing for E3. Now, I wouldn't say that my attendance to E3 hinges on Jeff Keighley being there. That's not the big decision point. There's a lot of other stuff that, of course, is interesting to me, actually getting hands-on stuff, getting the news. That's what's important. But the thing about Jeff Keighley not going is that it's just a very big symbolic moment, I think, for that overall conference, and just kind of in a weird way ties together all the things that have been adding up over the past years. You know, the fact that Sony isn't going this year, the fact that Microsoft is there, but again, has their own event across the street, the fact that EA has their own separate event, that, yeah, it's happening at the same time as E3, and they might do a press conference, but if you're an E3 attendee, you don't necessarily go to EA's event. It's this whole other separate thing. And we're at the point where when it comes to the main E3 event itself on the show floor, you have Nintendo and a couple major third-party companies like Square Enix and Ubisoft. Overall, it is a lot smaller than it's ever been in previous years. And while there are sometimes some really great news that comes out of each individual presentation, when you look at the overall sign of just who's actually there and what's happening at E3, it's been slowly dying off more and more. Now, while I don't think this necessarily means that E3 is for sure dead and we're never going to see it again or whatever, like this could be the last year or something insane like that, I think that if E3 does continue on, it needs to change. The form that we currently know it as just honestly doesn't make much sense anymore. You know, the whole reason for E3 existing in the first place is because there was a time when you didn't have the ease of the internet to spread a lot of information. You know, you had to find a way to get a bunch of different journalists and writers together all in one room to try all these things back to back, and each company had a shot at showing why their stuff was cooler than the competitors. And that made sense for a long time, but as the internet has gotten more and more prevalent, well, companies can kind of just do that on their own now. Look at even a company like Nintendo, where they are going to be attending E3 and they will probably have some good announcements to reveal there. They don't rely on E3 as being the main source of their news anymore. They'll probably have some big things for it, but nowadays they get a lot more traction out of their own Nintendo Directs, which currently a lot of people are foaming at the mouth for a new one and trying to figure out when that's going to happen. The point is that that news cycle that they're able to create on their own has ended up being a lot more powerful for them than just relying on this one big yearly event. And in fact, it's even possible that this is what has inspired Sony, who didn't go last year, they're not going this year, and have started their own kind of version of Nintendo Directs, which honestly haven't been as successful quite yet, but each one has gotten a little bit better, and I think that's what a lot more companies are looking to start doing, is making their own news and not relying on anyone else's schedule. Because not only does it allow them to control the flow of information, but they don't necessarily have to worry about having to line up side by side with other companies and try to one-up each other. They can make news when they see the best opportunity and not have to worry about, say, Microsoft having an announcement at the exact same time that overshadows it. And the thing is, the ESA, the company that runs the E3, is clearly aware of this, because they've tried reinventing the conference a little bit in their own way, where, it's become less of a media-only event, and instead they're now trying to make it more of a kind of fan fest thing, where people can buy tickets and come and check all the stuff out. And while I think that has helped in certain perceptions, especially with, people that just want to go and check this thing out and see it as this huge event, clearly it hasn't done anything for the companies actually showing up, because again, they're leaving and doing their own thing. All of this stuff combined with other issues like the fact that last year they accidentally leaked a bunch of the media's personal info just comes together to where I think a lot of people aren't interested in attending anymore. And while there are people that are going to go, and I think they are going to still sell tickets, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be the kind of upwards momentum and traction that they really need to have. I still don't know if I would confidently say that E3 is dead, but I think it's definitely safe to say that it is definitely dying and isn't looking super great. And as things are right now, a change has to happen, and honestly, I'm not completely sure what that change needs to be.